Hello everyone, this is Fantastic Worlds, looking back to Lovecraft Country and the Secret World Interludes, and we're going further into the shadowy forest of Transylvania. Now, the northern section up here, by the way, which we did before, is kind of an area that's still close enough to civilization to be touched by it, but once we go past this point here with the of the map, which is pretty much marked by this tunnel, we start getting into some architecture that hasn't been changed since Vlad Tepes' period. In fact, we're probably going to go over a lot of Vlad Tepes' touch, as it were, in this area. Now, Dracula, Vlad Tepes, in the real world was the voldai of an area of Romania that is adjacent to Transylvania and also included Transylvania as a form of conquest, but that's about it. Bram Stoker, of course, made him into the king of vampires, but in this game, in this game, he's the head of the vampire hunting Draculesti, which we will get to as well. But first of all, let's talk about Imanitsky, I think. That's probably a terrible pronunciation. This fortified city, which remains, of course, untouched. Now, back in the period of time when Vlad Tepes was attacked by Lilith and his former queen, Mara, now the vampire queen, this area was overrun, and the people in here were either killed or corrupted. Now, the corrupted are the original monastery monks. We met them before as a Deathless back in around Kukule's tree. But in here, Kukule managed to curse them so they only can remain within the city itself. Or at least that's the theory. The thing is, they can chase you outside of that force field, which I discovered at one point, too much to my dismay. But what's interesting here is it refers to this is actually not the village itself, but the fortified center, which contained the stables, blacksmithy, and all the materials necessary for the military might of the area. And you see, as you notice, the construction here is full of narrow, winding roads that are designed to, passages that are designed to confuse anyone not familiar with the terrain and allow ambushers from the higher levels to strike down at them at any point. Ooh. Interesting. Not entirely sure why there's a statue just by itself over here. Oh, excuse me. Flappy, dude. Not happy with your kind. Alright. So, as you can see, the structure itself remains relatively unchanged, although somewhat ruined during the original structure. My guess is the curse keeps everything, including the torches, at a pristine amount. And the Deathless themselves are locked within the same cycle of time, preparing themselves for commands from Lilith, which will never come, because she can't get access to this area anymore through Kukule's wards. In any case, the excuse me. Guys, can we just not? Okay, you happy now? But as you penetrate further in, you begin to realize that the structure itself gets tighter and tighter until it focuses back on the church, which is the most secure structure in this entire place. In fact, it's also got a secret door, if you remember that part as well. And it's got higher levels as well to do so. Now, the thing is, the reason that is this way is that this was the martial focus of the entire valley itself. In other words, this was the stronghold, and outside of this were all the villages and that it supported. In the feudal system, by the way, guys, I'm leaving. In the feudal system, what would happen is that these structures would be placed at, fortified structures would be placed at critical points, basically trade junctions, in order for things like, oh, see, told you. Her curse is rather weak, apparently, at this point. These guys just don't leave because they don't think about it. But the fortified structures were designed to control trade routes. If you remember the feudal structure at all, with the, the king, the prince, the lords, the knights, etc., and all the peasants down below, the entire thing was, of course, to extract wealth from either travel or agriculture. And in the era time of Vlad Tepes, the mountain tunnels that go through the sections weren't there. In other words, everything was connected by little winding roads, and in this mountainous terrain, these fertile valleys were precious assets that had to be protected. So you protected them at the entry points, and the entry points were not roads primarily, but rivers, because rivers don't have to be maintained. You can float a barge up down them, and you row up them as needed, and it's slightly more secure than a road, where guys can just come out of the bushes and jump on top of you. Although I'd imagine there were river pirates, and I just kind of like to think about that, the fact that you might have, guys just swim up to rafts and try to attack them with knives and such. It's kind of an interesting concept. I've done it before in role-playing games. But yeah, these roads right here, for example, the remnants of the Roman ones, which means the architecture probably originally was Roman, because we know the Rome was here because the Sol Invictus ruins, which are further up to the Carpathian Fangs. So these roads are not the Soviet ones, the ones with the cobblestones, but originally built on top of the old ruined roads. Now, as I was saying, oh yeah, well, that's helpful. Science without science. That's back over here. We're going to take it just the old way it was and bring it down to here. You see, the road itself here is a Soviet one. This one is designed and has all the modern architecture by the Soviets, but the Red Hand took over this area for their purposes. And speaking of the Red Hand, let's travel down the way that the old people, the old ones did. You know, I would imagine that this particular area was not one which was they would use that often, but if you recall, boom, slash. This section is also where the Red Hand secret bunker for experimentation is. And since we don't have the mission action, we can't go into it, but this section was the experimentation where they took children in the area, we'll get into where they came from in a bit, and turned them into monsters. Because Oriachi does that. Just pointless human experimentation. But let's avoid these guys. Anyways, if you continue going down this section during its heyday, probably when banks are much wider, barges will be floated up and down. Now, if you're in the mountains like this, the primary... Guys, really? Seriously? I'm supposed to be getting my kills for the day. That's a bit annoying. Anyways, you head down this section, you notice the path beside it as well would be where the mules, and I was talking about rowing, that would be impossible. Actually, the mules that carry barges uphill would do, upstream would be going. And let's see. Let's just get past you guys here. So can you imagine just going down this section? Well, but they wouldn't have these ghouls and such around, but no, they probably would actually. It's in the secret world. With no lights, no structures, nothing at all, just you connecting to the docks down there, back and forth, spending days among the ancient trees. It gives you an idea of what exactly this. Now, this section here, for example, probably was a lock system, which was designed to prevent barges from getting through unless they paid the taxes. But unfortunately, with the system collapsed as it is, we can't go any further. As you can see, eventually we would end up down here and to the foothills and into the second section of village here. Remember, like I said, the structures themselves were simply designed to support the villages, because in times of conflict, you'd have your farms and such spread out, all over the entire place. And you couldn't possibly defend them, so when actual conflict occurred, you would have all of your villagers take their food in with them, the cattle and such, and then you would wait out a siege, or you just sit behind there and let the knights deal with it, although we'll get to the knights into a moment. And then you will deal, check the map here, just making sure I'm in the right area, okay. And then you would check, because imagine the lock system is behind this section where you can't reach it. And then you come out into the ruins a bit. Okay, we're heading the right direction. Yeah, we're bypassing the lock system here. This section, of course, probably was part of the farmlands, but again has been buried for well, probably nearly 1,000 years at this point. I mean, when you get to that sort of age, you're not going to have anything intact remaining. That way. I think I might have taken a wrong turn, but let's get into what the wrong turn takes us to. Octavian's castle. Okay, it's a castle, but Octavian's house. Now, the thing is about Octavian is that he lives in a relatively modern cabin, despite living since the original Roman occupation, which means he predates Dracula. Now, what's interesting about him is this. Octavian states that Lilith gave him immortality as a punishment, but in one particular mission, when you go, see, he's got no dialogue to go with it. Bing, nothing. So not a bad place, really. But in Octavian's... Seriously, though, did you, build this by hand? You probably had the time. Man. You're immortal, I guess. You might as well just do something with your time, rather than just sit around on a throne and be looking bored. Anyways, as I was stating, this section up here with Octavian was that if you one mission in which you take into the corrupted baths in Carpathian Fangs will show Octavian as a figure of worship in full Roman dress. Now we know, however, the Sol Invictus cult, as it was back then, was obsessed with immortality, and as the highest one, he probably didn't get the skeletal immortality, but the full immortality. The problem is, he was like in his late 50s, early 60s, and Lilith didn't promise him eternal youth. No, you got to be careful about these contracts and such. So he was essentially pissed off about Lilith, and I'm guessing when Lilith moved in, he decided to switch sides and work with Dracula in an attempt to redeem himself to find death, which has not unfortunately worked. So yeah, Octavian was originally a bad guy. It's one of the things that's very subtle in the game, is that, like, you use one fresco in the end of one mission in the depths of the caves beneath the Carpathian Fangs, but it's right there. And it tells you that, originally what Octavian was up to. Now, of course, that's Amelia. Remember, we're stuck in particular points in space-time. This one is actually later in space-time than the camp itself where Amelia comes to. We'll get to that in a moment with the, shall we say, the living portion of Vlad Tepes' legacy. So Sol Invictus took over this place at the end of the Roman era. Basically, he became immortal, but unlike all the other ones, he managed to keep his mind going. So my guess is that when she called upon him to join her forces to attack Dracula's forces, he told her to go screw herself. Because, think about it. You've had the same goddamn back pain for 500 years, and she won't fix it, and she wants you to fight a war on her behalf. My guess is you'd say no. But yes, this is kind of an interesting combination here. Now, these structures right here are newer ones. These are probably developed during the Soviet era. This is over by the Hellgate. And in this particular structures, the exterior ones resemble those, but the interior ones, let's see, I'll just get the stealth field going here.
Local bounty detected.
Well, modern for 1960s. The interior ones around the Hellgate have the original architecture from Vlad Tepes' period, possibly even the Roman period. Now, given the Gothic structures, I'm going to guess these are rebuilt over original Roman ruins. This has the look of a forum, for example. If you recall, back in the ruined, or when you go back in time to the current Roman city, the section in the back here, it resembles the multiple temples and such, but in this case, it's been repurposed for the Roman Catholic faith that Vlad would be defending against the Ottoman Turks at the time. I mean, even you have this old-fashioned inn here still functional. Well, the Banner Tavern is functional to some degree. Yeah, that's an entrance to the Hellgate down there, which we will not be exploring today, thank you very much. In any case, can you actually get up there? I actually have never checked that, but I don't think you can. I don't think you can make that jump. Yeah, that jump's not happening. So my guess is just window dressing up there. But yeah, this is the original tavern, which you notice has some similarity to the Green Man owl in the tree. I don't remember the name of that place back in Aberesti. I'm sorry about that. Oh, what? Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. Here, let me introduce myself. I usually introduce myself with a satellite strike. I identify as a badass. And usually I manage to prove it. Anyways, yeah, I'm seriously over level for the area anyways. Yeah, so this section right here, by the way, if we roll it backwards, Sol Invictus originally took it over, created whatever dark place of worship that they wanted. Vlad rolls in. Now, this is when Lilith's not in originally, and the Sol Invictus is probably asleep, and Octavian's muttering to himself in some cave somewhere, just like that damned vampire I'll get to later. But Vlad builds over with his Gothic structure and rededicates the place to God. Now, the presence or absence of Yahweh, the God of the Israelites, that's prominently known as God in our time, hasn't really been addressed by the game, quite wisely, because we don't really want to deal with any real type of religion, although the Ottoman Turks or Islam, that's not really referred to here. But the thing is, he does so. Then when Mara, on Lilith's name, takes over the place, she creates this hell spot again. Now, the thing is, we know that the active gates to hell were originally created during the 1960s, and the Red Hand attempted to experiment stupidly with dimensional breaches, and they succeeded. The Hell Kings came out, and we saw the crashed Hind helicopter with the one of the weapons from these things sticking into it. So the Hand and the Hells fought together. Obviously, the the doors were sealed. My guess it was actually these secret factions that we work for in this game that sealed it for them, or the Red Hand got extremely lucky, and that's the reason why they buried all the archives and filled in all the things. Because, you know, bad enough if you're trying to deal with the capitalist imperialist pigs of the Western Empire from their point of view. But, you know, you have the actual legions of hell, and your culture as a atheist communist one doesn't say hell exists. Yeah, I mean, it's not just a military issue. It's, you know, if you're looking at it the right way, it's kind of an issue dealing with the propaganda as well. There is no God and no hell. Ignore the giant flaming door over there with things pouring out of it. Any case, let's go over to the last structure. Oof, I should probably get that at some point. Anyways, this, of course, is the graveyard. But you're going to notice something, by the way, is that these are not standard graveyard fortifications. These are military fortifications. This area probably was used, again, as another military strong point. Now, the thing is about this is that these valleys would be, without the modern infrastructure, would be cut off from each other except for narrow winding roads in which you couldn't move armies in or out. So if you'll notice on the map, you have a fortified structure here covering this entry level, because obviously the tunnels are probably built along the regular road, and another structure dealing with the river here. So basically you have the ability to check travel in and out of the area with a military presence. But later on, these were converted into a graveyard here and a cursed village over there. Yeah, the thing is that one of the... Oh, excuse me. I thought I had my stealth field up. Please forgive me for being rude here. Now, this area here was actually created after Dracula's death because the center point is in fact, the center point is in fact his tomb, which is actually in the style of an European Catholic, old school Catholic church. Now, what odds are, however, either A, the church was in place, hang on, when, come now, really? I'm going to win this fight. No, she did run away. Not stupid. Alright. I like how my hands drip when I'm using blood magic. Now this section down here, either it was originally a house of worship, which is theoretically possible because a lot of times the medieval villages and such would have a church at the center as the most reinforced area. Basically, if the entire village falls, you put the church in the area because it's got these thick stone walls, seal the one door in and out over there, and then pray that they don't burn you out of the structure because, you know, even with stone, they can find ways to make life unpleasant for you in here. And you basically pray. I mean, even look at this. You can hold, two guys could hold off that entry point with a couple of pikes and no problem with having archers set up on different rows and as well as on top of the structure. Yeah, this area originally, like I said, was a fortified section. Now, the thing is, they converted it to a graveyard after Vlad's death and placed him under here. That's what happens to a lot of individuals that are revered as saints, whether officially by the church or not. Vlad, of course, in this world and our world is not revered as a saint, as he was kind of a psychopath in many ways, but that really hasn't stopped other saints, mind you. I mean, Saint Nicholas apparently has legendarily beat up another bishop on the floor, although that's kind of disputed by most historians. But in this area here, you notice it has a great view of the area, especially if you put somebody up there, where you can see forces coming in and out. Those walls will form a cursory defense, and odds are originally this wasn't a graveyard. Remember, it was converted. But since they didn't tear down previous structures, it might have been simply a fortress designed to muster individuals. You could put people into the place. By the way, Izmaikun, the village we were in before, says evil place. That's what it means in Romanian. I don't know what originally it was, but it's called the village. You could put people in the village and muster your forces here, because odds are you're not going to be able to muster the forces in that particular structure very well. Ugh, stop blowing up the place. Simply because, let's see, check the map where I'm going the right way. I think I am, yes. Okay, because in that area, you're going to be able to field a lot of troops. You can even have them pitch their tents and such. And when, obviously, the later time period and you had less medieval sieges and such, you converted it to a graveyard, and buried Vlad after the successfully repelled the vampire attack from Lilith and his wife, and placed his essence in there to be resurrected in case they ever came back. Here we are. And let's come to the last part of his legacy. The Draculesti. Now, the Draculesti are based on the Romani. Now, the thing about the Romani is that they're kind of another culture like the Native Americans that tend to get romanticized a bit in literature and movies and kind of miss the point. They are actually a persecuted minority, actively being persecuted in Poland and Romania at the time of this recording. Oh God, history repeats itself so often. And they're often misunderstood. They're often attributed to having pagan faiths, being magical, being thieves, and being dirty, if you really want to get down to it. Now, the thing is that the Romani, I'm going to give these guys a pass with the alternate universe theory, the same way I did with the Native Americans. These are not the standard Romani because, as far as we know, there is no secret war with the vampires at this time. So, the idea being is that these would be an alternate version of the Romani if magic existed and if Dracula wanted to form them. Now, the reason why the Romani and the Dracula work together is that in the original book of Dracula, the fact is that they serve as his minions, moving things around in the country, and his spies, while I suppose in this world, Bram Stoker must have been hired by Lilith, who decided to just do a smear campaign on the dead guy. The fact that she put all of her forces into the Dracula's former castle is a strong point to do so, but I think she's spiteful. I get that impression after meeting her several times. But anyways, the altar back there is pretty common to ones that have a mixture of indigenous cultures and Roman Catholic. You're going to find that sort of iconery everywhere. For example, these up here are the real defenses of the camp, the wards. As you can see, the passive defenses. You'll notice there are active defenders hidden among the forest, which I actually like, because in a terrain like this, having hidden watchers is going to be more effective than any form of walls. They don't obviously use the old fortifications and structures since World War I. You just can bomb castles into oblivion. In fact, they did when the Germans were using them in World War II. But anyways, let's talk about the wards. The wards themselves are a mixture of okay, this isn't the best one. We'll find out. Okay, we'll do this one. You'll notice that it has a mixture of iconography. On the right-hand side of the Roman Catholic crosses. On the left-hand side is pre-Christian iconography that was later incorporated by the Nazis for the Iron Cross. But like the swastika, that symbol was a symbol of protection before it was appropriated by the occult-obsessed Nazis. Yeah, the whole thing about the alt-right's obsession with, shall we say, their own ideas of what Norse paganism should be is not original. It's just this, I would put this the tribute band version. And of course, they have crystallized, so the same color as this particular ward and the same color as the moonlight. So my guess is that the moon charges the wards, which is good. I mean, it's kind of like a different version of solar power in a way. It keeps the wards going, and these wards prevent supernatural beings from coming in. There's a few basic structures here. I mean, this isn't going to keep anybody out, but it will make it more difficult for animals to come through, and it will funnel people into certain areas of attack. And thus, we come to the Romanite camp. Now, the camp itself has barricades inside and out, as well as the wards, as well as guards, and the extra perimeter guards that you will not see unless you are paying attention, or if you run right past them. Now, the structures themselves, they probably originally had tents, but now use campers with the vehicles necessary to pull them. It's probably a lot easier, but of course, it's pretty rough living. In 2021 America, when I'm recording this right now, a lot of homeless people are doing similar things, having outdated campers, parking them in places where it's still legal to do so, which, by the way, includes the Walmart parking lots, apparently, and thus form these sort of communities. But in this case, these people already have a culture as opposed to just being outcast from a culture. And they do paint them, which I do think is appropriate, because a lot of times in Eastern Europe, the drab architecture and such is well painted, especially shutters and awls and such. So they did keep that part of the devs, which is quite good. Now in this, you'll notice also they're carrying garlic. Now garlic's association with anti-vampire activity is simply because vampires originally in mythology were personifications of disease. Nobody knew why, say for example tuberculosis simply sucked a person dry and took all the color out of them, so they made up the idea that a spirit was doing so. Whether or not you think it's cause or effect is depending on your view on the world's my guess, but I just like how the fog rolled in here while we're talking. Anyways, but the reason garlic was anti them is that garlic is an astringent. It's got acetic acid concentrated enough that it can actually be used to sterilize against a lot of bacteria, not viruses or really intense bacteria. And don't try it on COVID, by the way, it won't work. But during World War I, to avoid wound infection when they ran out of antiseptic, they actually would take wild garlic and crush it, and it worked. They even took blood moss, which is a type of moss you'll find in swamps that can absorb 20 times the liquid, packed it with bandages so the bandages didn't get soaked. I mean, let's face it, in World War I, they were still using mules for most of their transport. In any case, I do like how the fact they do have the mixture of modern clothing here. It's kind of not standard, because a lot of ways the Romani in this particular culture or other indigenous, if they're forced to use the clothing of the colonist / dominant culture, they will do it in a manner that does not fit the cultural standards. And as you can see, yeah, we've got the UN guy here to sell them shit. Not to give them support, mind you, it probably sell them shit. Now, if you remember, well, you will find out there is another one of these stationed by the Fae that essentially looks like he's got a selling market up. So my guess is that they get the Romani to find artifacts to them and then trade money for them for this. And obviously they're not making a lot on the exchange, or they probably have better gear. God damn you, Western imperialism. All right. So let's get to the leaders of the Draculesti. This, of course, is Milosh, his daughter, and Emilia. Now, the kids around here in the back corner are Tibor and Lumina. Now, the thing is that they kind of form a family unit here, probably in the using this particular place. But the thing about them is the fact that Milosh isn't their biological father. They're adoptees. We'll get into that in a moment. Conversation unit. Now, if the kids back there start talking, I'm going to have to basically stop, because I don't want two conversations running at the same time, as you're not going to get much for recording on that. But Milosh, this is one of the reasons why I'm not facing Milosh as I usually do. Don't know who this guy is, but hey, as long as he's willing to chill. I do admit, though, the Templars do have the most stylish uniform. I will not wear the Illuminati uniform because it looks like I'm wearing drapes. Anyways, edit.
Would you believe that I have the blood of Vlad Dracula in my veins? Sam would use that as an excuse to call me evil. Last time I checked, I had no fangs.
Well, there's a bit of a joke. That means he's the direct descendant of Dracula. Now, that may not be particularly spectacular, because as a noble lord, he probably had multiple mistresses and illegitimate children. And the fact that one of them would be a Romani, let's just face it, the Romani were second-class citizens in Transylvania long before it was Romania. And they probably was a servant girl. Servant girl got pregnant, got kicked out, because, of course, it's and a Roman Catholic culture of that time, and a lot of modern ones, that means that the girl was immoral. Not that the guy did anything wrong, just that the girl was wrong for letting her employer do what he wanted.
Bram Stoker did none of us any favors. The heck. To not only make Dracula into what he feared and hated most, but to romanticize vampires? Stoker is responsible for Twilight.
Hey.
Think about that for a second.
He's actually wrong, by the way. Stephanie Myers, when she wrote Twilight, did not, in fact, research any vampire lore. So, including Dracula, she'd never read it, according to her. So, she just did the whole sparkly thing and occasionally drink blood, and I'm not even going to go into it. There is ungodly amounts of material about how bad that is online. I'm not going to add to it. But, you see, Stoker is also responsible, by the same logic, for Only Lovers Left Alive, which is Tom Hiddleston and Tilda Swinton playing a millennial-old vampire couple that's still in love. And it's one of my most romantic, I consider it one of the most romantic films I've seen. So, yeah, go see it, by the way. It's really awesome. It's not a typical horror film. Anyways, back to this.
I have led the Draculesti since I was 17 years old. It's the only life I know or care about. But this is my family. And these are the people I love. And I would not want to be or do anything else.
Now, here's the thing about that. Yeah, he's old school. I mean, he uses corporal punishment and he's a strict father. But keep in mind something. This is not the modern world. And the tribal structure they have functioning here is actually a more stable structure than almost any other type of social group. And I'm saying that because there are, on the Polynesian islands and the jungles of Southeast Asia, a few remote spots in Africa, still functioning tribal structures today. So they've been going on since the Stone Age. And one of the reasons they do so is that unlike the modern era, which has its real problem ennui and lack of purpose within a mechanized structure, in which the person is subservient to the mechanical need, these people have a living culture, which every person has a responsibility to the tribe to survive as well by the role that they pick. He is the leader. It is his job to distribute resources and roles and to receive information in order to be able to make decisions of the tribe as a whole. And it's probably there's some cultural way probably of removing him should he become a problem. But while we're doing this, let's talk about the people that he do. Now, the Romani here are going to be, he's talking about the people in general, not the Draculesti.
You are probably wondering why we speak English here and not Romanian. We are from all over, not just Romania, not just Eastern Europe, but also the rest of Europe, the Middle East, Asia, the Americas.
Well, like most cultures, by the way, almost all cultures, no matter how white your skin, all of the Romani and all the Europeans and a lot of the other cultures originally came from North Africa and the Fertile Crescent, which is what we call the Middle East. And now, Middle East didn't used to be a desert during the time. It's why we call it the Fertile Crescent. The climate change, yeah, that's a thing even back then, rendered it into a desert, but originally it was the breadbasket of Central Asia. But what happened is during the changes in climate, the people moved from North Africa to the Fertile Crescent to Europe itself, and it started during the fact that they began to adapt to the environment change to the difference. Now, the Romani did so as well, and in fact, they followed all the way to America. So basically what happens is that there are Romani within the United States and other Americans. There's not a lot of them. The vast majority of them are still in... Dude, leave. Thank you. Rude. Anyways, the Romani mostly within Eastern Europe, where they are right now being persecuted still as a minority, especially by Poland, which passed certain laws making them second and third class citizens in many ways. God damn it, why doesn't history stop cycling? Anyways, keep going.
Our sworn duty takes us to places you would not believe. Last spring, we found ourselves in mountainous Nepal, where a clan of vampires had created a nest of caves reaching deep into the sacred peaks.
That sounds interesting. On the other hand, last year I was stepped outside of the universe. I can top you on that one. All right, so more.
But we always come back here, because this is home. And this is also where our journey began, and where the evil we fight first emerged. The Draculesti may be made up of 12 nationalities and 100 personalities, but we are one family, and we always stand together.
Okay, so, right. The thing is, he come back here because he also probably understand how to deal with the forest. Now, here's a thing that was not going to come up in this episode directly, but yeah, the Draculesti hunt the Fae. Now, this doesn't include me, of course, because I look human to them, and they can hear my thoughts as words. They think I'm talking to them when really I'm not. It's kind of a deception. But, yeah, they will hunt down any supernatural creature, while the village, which is why they're not there, has sanctuary for any supernatural creature that does that. In fact, one of the things I go to Haberesti for is sanctuary from the Draculesti. Now, that's the thing is you can't pick your allies a lot of times, and we're working together for this because, like I said, these guys have no concept. But the idea of an oppressed minority oppressing others, yeah, that's not that unusual. You look at the rest of the world. Anyways, let's see what he thinks of the Secret World.
We have always lived in the shadows of the outside world. Inside, what do you call it? The secret world. Those secrets were long ago revealed to us. But that does not mean there are no mysteries left.
Right. These guys essentially have always been part of the supernatural world, hunting it down and such. And they consider people like us who have been the rubes for a while the ones that are clueless in return. I mean, remember, he thinks we're Illuminati Magus. That's not a B. So that's one of the things that keeps him civil with us. But if he knew about our Fey nature, don't know how that would work.
Still, that does not concern us. the Draculesti do not deal with mystery. We deal with monsters. We will leave the mysteries to you and your people.
Again, they're not too curious about how the secret world functions. They don't want to know the secret stuff. They just want to kill vampires and werewolves and fairies and things that go bump into the night. Yes, it's one of my favorite animals, by the way, Akeisha down there. Let's talk to the daughter, Amelia. She doesn't have a lot more to say, so let's see what she does say. Now, if you recall, she did say that she has been trained in Western ones. You remember, yeah, we left her down at Octavian's, but that's in the future. We keep moving across different time points in the Shadowy Forest. It's one of the ways in which the Shadowy Forest stands out a lot. Oh, no. I waited too long.
That's why there's so many visitors with magical powers. Mija says that it's natural evolution.
Yeah.
And there's a rising threat.
Okay, so this...
Automatic.
Yeah, the kids are basically right. The bees are an emergency reaction. Gaia's living system. She cannibalizes essentially material she has lying around as dormant magicians that were essentially like I said with Rockabilly, Ricky Pagan back in Tokyo. That
Saying it's magic.
it is magic. Anyways, back that creates lines that she can do so, and they spread out around the world, and when there's bees, she activates them. Now the problem is when she activates them, the line essentially ends at that person, as we are drone. We don't actually reproduce. So in other words, she can't call all of them at once, or she won't have any further drones. Anyways, guys, kids.
I love my father, but he's also protective.
That's a word for it.
Very, 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 very protective.
You're like surrounded by vampires.
Funnily enough, he'll let me go out and fight Strigoi vampires with just about anyone. But when it comes to social things, he won't let me out of his sight.
So she can murder century-old bloodthirsty monsters, but you won't let her go on a date with a 16-year-old. Your priorities are messed up, dude.
I've lived in many places, and I've been lucky to have had a good education. But I still don't mind being back here, in the place Papa calls home, because we are doing important work at a crucial time. Although I do miss the shopping, and restaurants, and clubs, and indoor plumbing.
Heating. Yeah, this isn't much. You don't get Uber Eats out here.
I'm proud of my people and our heritage. We are Draculesti, the blood of Vlad Dracula.
Oh,
We
no.
fight vampires. No, really. It may not look like it, but I know how to fight. I can wield a sword, fire a rifle. I can even hold up in fisticuffs with Mijas. Although he has to pull his punches.
I'd imagine so. I don't think he's a human being. Anyways. Oh, gods, kids. Alright, I'm gonna do this because I think we can hear her over these guys.
Or my father would gut him alive and hang him up as a warning to everyone. Yeah, protective.
Wait, did we miss something?
Experience the world out there, but I will always choose to be with my own people first. To fight alongside the Draculesti, and to put my life at risk to help keep the world safe.
That's the thing. These guys are based on a more of a medieval point of view, or even earlier one, in which is still, by the way, happening in some of the tribes in the Kurds within the Middle East that are, well, haven't changed their nomadic ways. The idea that once a person, originally, sometimes just the male, but sometimes both, if you're depending on how desperate you are, the Kurds have realized how great it is to actually double the numbers of fighters if you let your women fight too. But as soon as you can hold a weapon, you are a warrior of the tribe, because the entire tribe defends itself, and the tribe must live or die. And sometimes you have to sacrifice for your people. And why this is alien to the quote-unquote modern way of looking, it has, like I said, survived better. Also, probably going to outlast after the collapse of our civilization.
I wouldn't mind being allowed to go to a bar once in a while, though.
I know a good one.
Or, do a little bit of shopping.
I don't think we can get Amazon to come out here. Probably a good thing. They'd probably just exploit. And I do that. Yeah, you, however, couldn't you? Ugh. Talk to you about getting her some catalog stuff. Anyways, so, and their kids. Now, these aren't their biological kids, but they're being raised collectively. But with Miloš, you can probably understand that Miloš is the father of everyone. And the kids would probably collectively be considered his kids, but there's a little more to that. And I'd let them say for themselves.
Hi, I'm Tibor. And I'm Luminita. We're Draculeski. That means we're vampire slayers.
And witches.
She wants to be a witch, like Zaha.
Awesome.
And he wants to be a fighter, like Mihas. But Milosh is training him to be king.
Shut up.
It's true. You're the boy prince, destined for greatness.
And you'll be a witch.
I'm fine with that.
Me too. Anyways, yeah. Thing is, it's not an or statement there, kid. He's going to have to be a fighter before he becomes the king if he wants to hold his throne. All right, tell me about your people.
We are the Draculesti, but that's not all we are. We take care of each other. We are a family.
When my papa died, Milosh took care of my mama and me.
There we are.
Milosh is like a father to all of us.
He's very strict.
But he means well. He keeps us safe.
I wish he'd keep us safe without using the cane.
Well, you do deserve it.
That's probably true.
Spare the rod, the child gets devoured by monsters, so I'm not going to make a comment about that. On the other hand, by the way, the thing is that, remember, about a dozen kids at least were taken by the Orochi, but given the Orochi have access to things like stealth technology and blood magic, I'm probably not going to fault the Milosh from there. And the fact that Lilith killed them all, not because she wanted to spare the children, it's been obvious, we've seen her murder an infant, but yeah, just realized that's like Christian propaganda about Lilith, who was originally a Mesopotamian deity, had her killing children, which is not actually true in the original myth. She's more of a creator-destroyer goddess, but I already spent 4 minutes getting into her. So let's see what the kids think of the secret world.
Everything is true.
Everything.
Oh no.
And dark days are coming.
They are.
That's what everyone keeps saying.
We're getting a little tired of
Yeah,
hearing
me
it,
too.
to be honest.
But we're prepared.
We can fight it. We can stop it.
It's what we do.
That's right. It's what we do.
Yeah, they're essentially rattling off the ad copy for the series, which is why people are saying it was they were getting tired of hearing it. Okay, so yeah, and here we are over at the lake, which is a good place to start because we'll be starting over there. See, like I said, that's the human. Ooh, I like the mountains back here than the stars. Just love I mean, it's not the most evolved engine or graphics, but it's beautiful. I like it. It just feels more like a natural place as opposed to a artificial arena. But in any case, yeah, the thing about that is that's the human heritage. Originally, this area would have been settled by tribes like the Draculesti, the Romani, which still have a tribal structure. And then essentially empires would form. Originally Rome, of course, because it just had to try to take over the entire world. Passing that would be the Dark Ages, the Catholic Church's domination over the area, and their warlords that, well, you can say, like to say to protect the people, but mostly it was to extort them. Most wars are simply to protect your financial basis as opposed to protect your people, because people just happen to be the financial basis. And then later on, as the modernization occurred, the Red Hand, which we've seen pieces in here and there, but at this point, the terrain of man ends. And the next interludes will be over the Fey heritage of this place. Shall we say, the much older cousins and forefathers of the hipster dude, because like I stated before, he is, and all other bees are a form of Fae. They are transformed from humans, but are no longer. After all, humans cannot simply dissolve themselves into the life stream or teleport, as well as throw fire from their hands. So, in any case, this has been Fantastic World, saying farewell from Lovecraft Country. Hope you enjoyed this one. The secret little interludes, of course, are more about the backstory than the actual main story. And usually what happens is that there will be one of these for every 3 regular episodes into the main story. And if we happen to have a bonus episode unlocked after the words, there'll be a bonus episode. Now, if you're watching this in real time, I reversed that order simply because I wanted the bonus episode to come before this, so it'd still be linked to the Tokyo storyline, but usually will be 3 episodes, 1 interlude, and 1 bonus episode. And I mention this because there's a bonus episode unlocked, and we'll be going through another 4 weeks and then unlock that. Just don't want anybody to think I'd forgotten it. And of course, if we unlock another one at 375 subscribers, then that of course will go to the next cycle. And it's kind of the way to see stretch this out a bit, because we are getting towards the end of the storyline. Tokyo is the last real chapter, and South Africa is the epilogue, and it's not even a completed epilogue. Here in 2021, 6 years after the main story ended, and 4 years after the introduction, 3 years after the introduction of South Africa, still no sign of the actual storyline itself is, the Africa storyline is going to be completed. I can't help you, but the speed I'm going, there, I'll have plenty of time to do it when we get there. Anyways, I'll see you next time.
You will see the dawning of a new age. To be a monarch or a beggar. To lose everything or to become a god. To stand with us or against us. The choice is yours.